Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal has charged former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the ousted Prime Minister, with crimes against humanity. The prosecution of the International Crimes Tribunal, the ICT, has pressed formal charges against ousted Prime Minister Hasina in a case filed over crimes against humanity committed during the July mass uprising. Sheikh Hasina was ousted from office on the 5th of August last year following a mass student-led uprising. And Hasina faced multiple cases linked to alleged crimes during the protests that rocked the nation. The crackdowns left about 1,500 people dead, 25,000 others injured. The proceedings were live broadcast in a significant move. For the first time, the ICT proceedings were broadcast live. Earlier, the judicial practice in Bangladesh barred photography and telecast of court proceedings. Well, whilst we're at it, let's also understand the accusations on Sheikh Hasina. They surmount to crimes against humanity, mass murders to tame the protesters. The alleged charges also include ordering law enforcement officers to shoot on sight, obstructing efforts to prevent a genocide, and widespread human rights abuses, mass detentions, extrajudicial killings, and political opponents. All of that is part of the alleged charges against Sheikh Hasina. And now Bangladesh's ICT, the International Crimes Tribunal, has charged Sheikh Hasina with crimes against humanity. What does this mean for India as a neighbor? What does this mean for the political corridor of Bangladesh? Joining me here on the broadcast, Suhas Chakma, Director, Rights and Risks Analysis Group, and Pathikrit Pai, a foreign affairs expert. Mr. Chakma, let me come to you very quickly. What does this now mean? Is the road back home for Sheikh Hasina all but completely destroyed and closed down? How does one look at this?
I think these charges were expected, but we have to admit that, these charges have already lost the sanctity in the sense that, the charges which are being brought before ICT are politically biased. And the government of the day, Dr. Yunus himself, has lost the credibility to bring independent charges because everybody knows that he wants to remain in power, doesn't want to hold elections. But I think on the specific charges which were brought before the court against Hasina and two other senior officials, I think these charges are selective and they can only, sustain in Bangladesh, not anywhere else, because they are politically motivated charges for one or two reasons. One reason is it only Hasina who is to be held responsible. If you look at it, the army were involved, but you will not touch, the head of the army, chief of staff, which is General Jaman, because you are dependent on the Bangladesh army. So Bangladesh army officials, if they are with any kind of, violations of humanitarian laws, crime against humanity, then of course the Bangladesh army officials have to be charged themselves. You did not charge them. That's one part. The second part is in the entire conflict, obviously 1,500 people have been killed, but not all of them have been killed by the security forces. There were so many cases where students, protesters had killed so many Army League people, including burning down to that of about 15 police officials. And there are so many incidents. In fact, we are documenting them. So if you were interested in a genuine prosecution of all the accused, it has to include, those who are involved from the government side as well as those from the opposition side.
Right.
Because when you bring the charges of crime against humanity, you cannot only hold those who are responsible, in terms of command responsibility. But you have given, what Yunus had done is they had given complete sanctioned immunity to the students because there is a legal bar at this point of time to even file a criminal case against the students, even if they had killed the police officials. So many police officials have been killed. So this charges, I don't think has any kind of sanctity, but this is a political, orchestration.
So, essentially a one-sided indictment, if one looks at it.
Absolutely.
A completely one-sided one. Pathikrit, can a fair trial truly be conducted in absentia? I mean, this is being broadcast live for the first time. What are some of the implications of something like that? Of course, the Yunus-led interim government would want to tell the world that, they're doing everything out in the open, in public domain. But like Mr. Chakma was pointed out, it seems like a completely one-sided indictment. Can a fair trial truly be held in absentia? And in such a politically charged scenario where people are asking for early elections, but on the other hand, you've got the Awami League and Yunus interim government's proper move of removing that name from the annals of Bangladesh's history?
So first and foremost, International Crimes Tribunal, Bangladesh has nothing international about it. It is a domestic war crime tribunal which was set up in 2009 to investigate the atrocities done in 1971, the genocidal crimes by Pakistan Army and their collaborators who are the Razakars. Secondly, if you look at what is happening right now, against the backdrop of the fact that the interim government has already banned Awami League, it cannot participate in elections. The fact that this interim government led by Dr. Yunus is facing tremendous pressure, even from those quarters who were big supporters of him in August 2024, including the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, probably even from the Jamaat organizations and the army. Everybody, especially the army and the BNP or the Jatiyo Party, they are all asking for elections. But Dr. Yunus simply does not seem to be interested in holding an election. There is no provision of an interim government beyond the point being in power in Bangladesh. It is unconstitutional. So once you have already banned a political party, and then file a charge sheet like this, it is completely biased. It is known. So even what happened on August 5th in 2024, the reason why India gave asylum to Sheikh Hasina is because there was no chance of any kind of justice or protection of a prime minister in Bangladesh. She could have been completely lynched in the public. That is the kind of a mob mentality Bangladesh has, especially of a section of the people. So I think there is a chance, and it appears to be an effort by the Yunus government to deflect the attention from the kind of pressure that it's facing right now, because it is not holding elections, and also because there is a lot of jitter within Bangladesh about the presence of the Americans in Bangladesh, the US Armed Forces presence in Bangladesh. There is this talk going on for setting up a Rakhine corridor from Bangladesh to Myanmar. What is the purpose of that?
It's anybody's game in Bangladesh at this point in time. Nobody knows who's at the helm of affairs. Essentially, you have one figure, one puppet head right on the top, but you don't know how much power that person actually controls on the ground. We saw that BNP-affiliated parties gathering on the streets of Dhaka, and the entire sea of protesters that we saw. So who's really at the helm of affairs is a big, big question. Mr. Chakma, if one puts themselves, or tries to put themselves rather, in Sheikh Hasina's shoes right now, what kind of remedies does she have at her disposal? Mechanisms, if any, do they exist for Sheikh Hasina now?
No, I don't think there is any legal remedy to a political charge. It has to be responded politically. I think she has to wait for the situation. And everybody knows that there is, as you have rightly said, nobody controls Bangladesh, and none of the ministers, they have worked together. They only have one desire, that is to stay in power. But beyond that, they have been working at cross purposes. And Yunus knows that if it cannot continue with anti-India and anti-Sheikh Hasina rhetoric each time, his government will not survive. And I think this charge which has been brought is in response to what the BNP had done in the last 2 or 3 days in terms of holding protests and asking for elections. And, Tariq Jia saying in no uncertain terms that the elections shall have to be held by December this year. Then how do you deflect, or how do you isolate the BNP? So the challenge for the current regime of Yunus is not the Awami League, because Awami League has been banned. The current challenge for them is the BNP, and you use the Awami League, to address the BNP. And by bringing these charges before the tribunal and publicizing them, you basically make sure that, first of all, you satisfy the international community that you are holding some kind of charges. And the second, of course, people have not, people are in a way compelled not to forget rhetoric of Yunus against Hasina. So that's the only way they can remain in power. So whatever they want to do in between, if the day, I would say, the day they give up anti-Hasina propaganda, the government will not survive possibly 24 hours. So the only oxygen which they have is being anti-Hasina. And if they had any kind of belief in the rule of law, as I said, they would have brought charges, at least against those who have murdered the police officials. Because if you murder the law enforcement officials, if you give complete immunity, then you are in a way demoralizing the entire system.
That's a pertinent point, Mr. Chakma. I mean, who's really at the helm of affairs, number one, and the anti-Hasina propaganda is basically why this lobby is working. I mean, stomachs are being fed on this lobby, so why not stick to it? Patikrit, finally, of course, still early doors. These are just the indictment that's come out. We'll have to wait for how Awami League is going to react, albeit from its foreign cauldrons. The impact on the students and the youth of Bangladesh, because in any case, it's the youth that is going to be the most heavily affected. It is going to be the most impressionable right now in Bangladesh. They're the ones that are going to have to deal with the consequences, and not Khaleda Zia, not Sheikh Hasina. What do you think is going to happen for the youth of Bangladesh, the political situation going forward?
I think the youth of Bangladesh has been used as a pawn. They are being used for a political purpose. You have a few so-called minister level advisors in the Bangladesh government. Most of them are barely done graduation or doing post-graduation with no understanding of politics, international affairs, policy making, governance. Now you have created a sham. From August 2024 onwards, you see the kind of decline the Bangladesh government had. The hundreds of factories have closed down. Thousands of probably lakhs of people have lost their jobs. There's a dysfunctional police force. The police is not to be seen on roads. Students are not in classroom. They are roaming around in streets, pretending to be lawmakers and law keepers. It's a total chaos. The radical Islamist organizations have been given a free run. Yunus is making all kind of idiotic comments about India as if Seven Sisters is a separate country. Transshipment has been stopped by India. You are antagonizing the Chinese by allowing the Americans to stay there. You are antagonizing the Chinese Americans by allowing the Chinese to stay there. You are antagonizing the Indians by asking Chinese to set up a base there. I mean, you're creating a mess out of this country, which is beyond their paycheck. And then Yunus would suddenly someday run away, fly away to Paris or somewhere else because he came for a purpose. He was appointed for a job by his Western masters. He was not elected. So the mess that he would leave behind, it will be for the young generation to sort it out. That the kind of destruction of infrastructure that has happened, apart from the loss of life, is immense for Bangladesh. So the investor confidence is lost. Jobs are not available. There might be a potential food crisis in the next few months. And to deflect attention from all of this, you are just keeping on pointing fingers at Sheikh Hasina. Let me tell you the actions taken by the Yunus government and the way he has exploited the students. As I said, they've been used as a pawn. Eventually, what is happening is that it is turning counterproductive. Sheikh Hasina is becoming more popular. I think people are regretting what they have done. They think that the earlier regime was better than the chaos they have right now. So eventually, I fear, and I think these are being talked about in Bangladesh as well. There is a possibility of a civil war kind of a situation, as a possibility of Bangladesh becoming like a Syria, where different factions will fight with each other. The general of the army had even warned that the country might split up. So this is how what Yunus has done, and this is exactly what these elements are sent to do. Yunus actually works for the Clinton Foundation and like that kind of organizations. So you can understand the mandate with which he has been sent. My question is this: from August 2024 onwards till date, has the condition of Bangladesh improved? If it is so, then Yunus was is successful. If it is not so, then I think people of Bangladesh.
And I think we all know the answer to that, Patikrit. I think we all have the answer to that, where this is going. And the Nobel laureate, like Mr. Chakma calls, the interim leader of Bangladesh, how noble this person is, I think history is going to judge this person really, really differently as to what's happening right now on the ground. Like I've been saying, really early doors, but you've pointed out to another pertinent point that, it's going to be very important for India to look at what's happening in the neighbor, because if in the advent of a civil war, the borders are porous on various points, and it's going to become a problem for the entire region as well. On that note, I think we're going to leave this discussion here, but there's going to be a lot more to talk to Mr. Chakma and Mr. Pai on this particular front. As the trial unfolds, it is not just Sheikh Hasina's legacy on the line, but also Bangladesh's commitment to justice, accountability, and democratic values. The world, needless to say, is, of course, watching.